r/AskReddit by Reddify. What is the most hurtful thing a medical professional has ever said to you? New doctor took my height measurement and jotted it down before issuing me a very casual, tall for a woman. I'm a bearded man. He was just stating a fact. That height would in fact be tall for a woman. Came in for something totally different and she commented on my stretch marks on my hips and around my breast. I was around 17 years old and had gotten them when I hit puberty because I developed so much in a short amount of time. I explained this to her and she had a whole dialogue with herself about her originally thinking it would have been because I used to be fat. And after my explanation just lamenting about how sad it was for me that I would have to live my entire life with a body like that. Changed doctor the next day. I'm so sorry that happened to you. 1 month after I gave birth to my first child, I went to see a new cardiologist. I was there for my heart, but he found it necessary to comment on how many stretch marks I had gotten and how they were unusually bad for a woman so young. Some doctors literally have no clue or insight into patient interaction. Luckily more degrees are increasing the amount of time spent on developing doctor-patient interaction. I even read some courses are making doctors do a rotation as a nurse, basically to teach some humility and empathy. When I was 16 and dealing with partial deafness, sometimes being a teenage girl is hard. But it's hard to parent them too, so there's no need to exaggerate things to make things harder for your parents. Knock it off. There's nothing wrong with you. 2 tumors, 9 surgeries, and a CSF leak later. Yes doctor. There really was something wrong. I'd send that doctor a card with images of your tumors to the doctor with a note that reads the inadequacy of your professional capabilities is a measurable danger to public health. That needs to be completed with knock it off. There's something wrong with you. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Was having digestive issues I eventually learned were a result of my undiagnosed cancer. Doctor suggested I should wipe better. Doctors should heed their own advice. That one sounds full of hit. Edit. Obligatory thanks for popping the gold cherry. 3 months ish pregnant. Start spotting. Spend about 10 hours at the hospital. Vagal ultrasounds. Lots of diagnostic testing. Nothing they can do. Tell me to go home and wait to miscarry. I'm a wreck. It's now late. Dark and rainy outside. But I don't have a way to get home because hubby is at work with our only car, was very young and poor. Doc says the nurses have taxi vouchers they can give me to get home. Go to nurses station. Ask for a taxi voucher. Nurse says we only give taxi vouchers to women who have living babies. Edit. Long time lurker. And don't post much. So still learning the ropes. Thanks for the gold. Silver. Plat. Also. Till that trying to respond to comments on mobile doesn't work very well. / Thanks so much for all of your kind words. If you take anything away from this, please let it be the fact that young people sometimes need a little help navigating life. This nurse's one comment caused me years of being afraid to ask for things for fear of being not only turned down, but also humiliated. TL. Doctor try not to be a peen. What the actual duck? Whoa. So sorry for that. Some people just don't get it. I woke up in the hospital and heard a nurse running out saying he's awake. The drive comes into the room and tells me to move my toes. I ask them where I am and what's going on. He just gets more insistent that I move your toes. I asked again where I was and that was going on. He almost yells at me, move your toes. I said I'm moving my toes. And immediately he says you will never walk again. That's how I found out I was a paraplegic at 21 years old. I had been in a single car wreck and was thrown 70-80 feet from the car and my vertebrae was dislocated and laying next to another one. I don't remember the car wreck, but that exchange with the doctor is burned into my brain. And that was 31 years ago. Edit 1. Damn, this blew up. Thank you to you all for your comments. I had a seatbelt on, but went off a small hill next to the interstate after clipping an end of the guardrail. Flipped the car down the hill and seatbelt gave way under the pressure and I went out the driver door window. My back collapsed around the door sill and dislocated one vertebra next to the one below it. I'm a big guy, 6 feet 4 inches and 235 at the time, and the force was too much for the seat structure. I found out all these details over the next few weeks while I was in rehab. Edit 2, gold and silver, thank you. Didn't think this story would touch as many as it has. Holy hell. I'm speechless. I'm so sorry they told you like that. Time might have been important. Before surgery on my eye, the nurse was telling me how her daughter and I went to the same high school. She then peeked under my gown to look at my peen and let out a small laugh. I was more shocked than offended, but she didn't have to laugh or look at my junk. Edit, few clarifications. I didn't report her or say anything. She was done shaving my knee, waited, then lifted the gown for a real quick peek. It wasn't like she upskirted me and laughed. She sought out the peek. George Costanza covered shrinkage at pools, but didn't mention a 62-degree hospital room in nothing but a gown. Lying down while nervous about surgery and the effect that has. It is not a flattering effect. It was hurtful because of her giggle and stayed with me because she could have known me by proxy of her daughter or the family I knew in her neighborhood. I'm insecure about how others think about me, so the fact she could have told her daughter is why it felt extra and comes up in those lovely anxiety plays my brain likes to put on while I try to sleep. It would have been a bit different if she was some random nurse with no connection to me, a friend's family, my old school, or her daughter being in my sister's grade. Most importantly, I'm really surprised at how many other guys have had the same thing happen. I've seen like 7 stories now just like mine. For real. That is incredibly unprofessional. Yeah, it's one of those experiences that stuck with me for the last 8 years since it happened. I kept thinking, do I say something? She knows who I am, and her daughter might tell people about my junk if I try to report her or something. So I never did anything, or really even told anyone. Can't be lighting myself up to my friends about the nurse lady who laughed at my peen. She was the one shaving my knee. It went like this. Nurse, so are you from around here? Me, yeah, I went to this high school, but graduated a few years ago. Nurse, oh, I live right next to it in that neighborhood. Me, you must know Kelly's family then. Nurse, yeep. My daughter is a senior, and we know everyone in the neighborhood. Me, that's cool. Then she peeks under the gown and snickers. It was like a quick giggle laugh. We were just chatting while she was doing the shave, then bam at the end. Quick peeked my peen and left. It still haunts me, lol. I wouldn't have cared that much if I didn't know her daughter probably knew me and my friends. When I was like 5'8", mom took me to the dentist, and he was stabbing above and under my tongue and the inside of my cheeks, and he said, if you cry I'm going to start over. Edit 0. I did cry at some point during a regular procedure, and he did start stabbing everywhere in my mouth again. Edit 1. He was stabbing me with the tool dentists use to clean your teeth and remove plaque. No needles were involved. If you start over, you get a turn in the stabby chair. The suggestion that I had confused a panic attack for a seizure. To clarify, this was my first grand mal seizure. My father had them prior, and my mother witnessed both him having one and myself having mine. According to her, it was identical. I even hit all the textbook marks of having had an epileptic seizure. From the memory loss to the post-ictal fatigue. The emergency room doctor didn't run any tests or examine my family history of epilepsy. He simply noticed the anxiety disorder in my medical history and assumed that I was just having a panic attack, and wrote it off as my only issue being that I'd hit my head. Talking to my psychiatrist later about the incident, he confirmed based only on my account, corroborated with mom's details, where I couldn't fill in, that I had definitely had a seizure, and he sent the orders for further testing himself. He also couldn't refrain from saying, what the duck is wrong with this doctor? I'm glad that at least one of my doctors took my seriously. I agree. How completely lazy and arrogant. And potentially life-threatening. Very negligent. Every experience I have had in the doc sees my past treatment program and file. You really shouldn't drink. You're getting older and the body doesn't react and recover the same. We're going to give you if fluids. Yeah. That was 10+ years ago. And I have 0 alcohol in my system. And I had a hypoglycemic seizure. Thanks document. Once phoned a doctor about a lump I'd found on my balls. He said, "Is it black and the size of a tennis ball?" To which I said no. And he said it's nothing to worry about then and hung up. Edit. It ended up being a cyst that I had checked out and was luckily fine. Didn't expect my balls to blow up so much. But I'd hope they'd one day earn me gold. Thank you, kind sir. Blessings of Stender upon ye. That's not a very good doctor. Lol. Getting out of the army, you are 100% healthy. My medical record was about 6 inches thick. Went to a civilian doctor and they were astonished anyone would say that. I'm rated 80% disabled. My mother and grandfather were both injured in the army. They will do everything in their power to claim that you are healthy. Because if you are injured, they pay your medical bills for life. They tried to tell grandpa that losing all of his teeth and having a crack down his forehead did not qualify him for a Purple Heart. Edit. Insert cringy surprise at how this blew up here. Story. Grandpa was in a tank. And a tank shell bounced off his turret and slammed his head into the other side of the turret. The reason they did not want to recognize his injuries is because he pulled the teeth out himself. They were loose and refused treatment on the skull fracture. Both my grandmother's husbands died because of the military. First was cancer from flying wrecking over nuclear testing sites. And second was cancer from Agent Orange. Not sure if she gets money for both though. My doctor didn't actually speak. His reaction was worth 1,000 words though. He literally rolled his eyes, threw his head back, and sighed very loudly. I had been having a semi-regular pain in my abdomen for years. A terrible cramping pain. I'm a man, so it wasn't menstrual in nature, that would double me over in pain, and would last for a day or two, and then go away. I had seen a few different doctors about it and none of them could figure it out. I was seeing a gastroenterologist about another problem, and mentioned my pain to him. He did some tests. Tried a few things. Did an endoscopy, and told me he couldn't find anything wrong. The next time I got the cramping pains I went back to him, and he performed his non-verbal routine mentioned above. It would have been less hurtful if he'd just told me I was a hypochondriac. I gave up on figuring out the pain. Fast forward a few years, and I'm having a bout of these cramps. Middle of the night I get up to go to the bathroom. I puke my guts out and proceed to pass out on the bathroom floor for a few seconds. I make it back to bed without waking my wife and somehow fall back asleep. In the morning I get up and need to puke again. My wife goes with me out of concern and I pass out on the toilet. She calls 911 and I get whisked away to the hospital. Didn't take too long for the doctors to determine I had a bowel obstruction. After 6 hours of surgery and a subsequent week stay in the hospital, I'm back home and feeling better than I have in years. Turns out that I had a 99% bowel obstruction caused by adhesions that had been slowly developing on my intestines since an appendectomy that I had in 1980. The surgeon told me that it was so bad in a few places that my intestines had been twisted on themselves. He referred to it as a rat's nest. The surgery was in March 2017. And not only have the cramps not come back once, I haven't felt this great in decades. TLDR, doctors couldn't find a problem with me / made me feel like a hypochondriac for almost 20 years. Turns out I had bowel obstruction caused by a surgery that took place 37 years earlier. Edit. A few quick things. I wanted to say thanks for the silver. I wasn't expecting anyone to even see this little story of mine. I made a few responses in the comments, but I did want to add a little to the story. My original appendectomy in 1980 became infected, which led to a second surgery to remove the infection. This was an 8-hour surgery that left me with a 9-inch scar on my abdomen. The eventual bowel obstruction wasn't always an obstruction, it was just adhesions on my intestines that were restricting my natural muscular movements and leading to occasional intense pain and constipation. I'm pretty certain the only way this could have been found was with an exploratory laparoscopy, which is exactly what happened once it turned into an obstruction and an emergency room visit. The good news is that I got fixed. I'm a much happier person. And I can poop better than ever before. LPT. Develop a medical condition and feel like it for decades so that you can feel better than ever when you get old and have it treated. You can't be in that much pain. You must have more energy than that. Turns out the lining of my nerves was being destroyed. I was becoming paralyzed. Painfully. Manuscript. My wife was finally diagnosed with that. Took several years and several doctors. If it is manuscript, or really anything else, then I hope whatever medication you're able to get helps prevent any further progression. Best of luck and best wishes. Autoimmune diseases are rich, and so are doctors who make light of it. Edit. Sources. My aunt recently died after having manuscript for most of her life. My sister has ankylosing spondylitis, which took way too long to get diagnosed. It wasn't so much what they said to me, but the ER staff made me wait 6 hours with a dead organ inside me acting like I was being a drama queen because I was in so much pain. Edit. Thank you to everyone who has reached out to wish me well or share their own story of overlooked and dismissed pain. I hope that you are all healed and doing well. To the people telling me it's not that bad because I didn't have a heart attack or stroke or I'm not dead, I hope that your innards don't just up and die inside of you. That would be terrible. Which organ? My ovary had a cyst that got too top heavy and twisted my ovary around 3 times and died. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.